Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. How come Buddhist practice takes so long? Let's answer that after 18 seconds of Coca-Cola by The Clash.
Elevator going up in the gleaming corridor of the 51st floor. The money can be made if you really want them more. Executive decision, clinical precision. Jumping from the windows filled with indecision. I get good advice from the advertising world. Treat me nice, party girl. Cocaine night, there's an edge so free.
Alright, that was Coca-Cola by The Clash. That was by request. I don't always take requests because a lot of times I don't know the songs that I'm getting requested, or sometimes the songs don't work or they're too hard to learn, but that was a request. So send in your song requests and I'll see if I can do them. Alright, this video today is based on a question, and as you know, since before your sun burned hot in space and before your race was born, I have awaited a question. And here is the question. Hi Brad, the other day you mentioned that a kensho experience is more likely to happen after 15 to 20 years of meditation or something like that. I know it can happen at any time, or at least that's what I hear, but mostly people seem to agree that it takes a while of practice. My question is, do we know why it usually takes a lot of time? Is it a physical thing in the sense that there is a rewiring of the brain, or is it because we spend such a long time looking at the mechanisms of thought and develop some kind of understanding which gives rise to a different kind of seeing? However, that still seems to be in the realm of thought. Okay. Can you say something about that? Alright, that's the question, and I'll see if I can answer it. I started doing Zazen when I was a young whippersnapper of about 19 or 20 years old. So at that age, one tends to be kind of impatient. The reason I started doing Zazen, well, there were many reasons I started doing Zazen, and I could rattle off a few, like having a kind of weird, sort of semi-paranormal kind of experiences when I was a kid. Nothing earth-shaking or nothing you would really write home about, but just knowing things that I shouldn't have been able to know, or being aware of things I shouldn't be able to be aware of through normal ways. Nothing ever useful, like I couldn't predict lottery numbers or anything like that, but I had these strange experiences that let me kind of clued me into the idea that the way I was being taught that the world was might not be really true. And then when I was a teenager, I found out there was Huntington's disease in my family. I've talked about this ad infinitum. I'm sorry for those of you who've had to listen to it so much. But it's a hereditary disease, and it usually strikes when you're in your 30s, and I was 20, and I thought, oh my God, maybe I'll get this disease, and I won't have much time to live, so I want to figure out what life is. I was very obsessed from a young age at understanding what life, the universe, and everything actually is. So I had that in me, and I got introduced to Zazen when I took a class at Kent State University called Zen Buddhism, and one of the first things I became aware of is that according to Zen tradition, you'll hear, I don't remember if my first teacher said this to me directly, but it was certainly in books that I read. It might have even been in books that he assigned me to read, because it was a class, so there were assignments. Afterwards, there weren't assignments, but I kept studying and practicing with him anyway. But anyway, the idea came across that it would take a very long time for any sort of kensho or enlightenment experience to happen. It could happen after 10 or 20 years, and of course I was very impatient. I think I said that already. So I remember maybe during my first or second year of doing Zen practice, I was walking around on the Kent State University campus, and I heard a bell ringing, one of these bells that comes on to tell you what time it is so you can get to class. And I got very excited and started going, bell, bell, bell. I don't know how loud I was being. I was, anyway, whatever. I don't know if anybody heard me. But I was very excited because it seemed to me I had understood that the bell and the sound of the bell were not different. And I was very excited about this revelation because it sounded seemed very Zen to me. And I went and told my teacher about it, and he said, oh yeah, that kind of excitement happens often when you first start practicing. I really wanted him to say, oh my son, you have been enlightened in record time. here is my cape and robe that you may take and teach the world of your wonderful enlightenment, or something like that. But that isn't what happened. Eventually, I had a moment where Shozan Jack Haubner just paraphrased this on a video, and I think I said this in a recent video, but I'll try to make it short. I had this girlfriend at the time who was a born-again Christian. Don't ask. It was a weird experience. Anyway, she had had a conversation with Tim that she reported. Tim was my first Zen teacher, that she reported back to me, Brad will never get enlightened. She said that Tim said that. And I was very disappointed to learn that, but then I decided to make my practice fully understanding the unenlightened experience. And I did this because I was already getting something out of Zen practice. It was already helping me deal with the stresses and whatever that one has in one's teens and early 20s, and I didn't want to stop. So I just made my dedication to study the unenlightened experience. And sure enough, there's been people. I've done a bunch of videos recently, about enlightenment and why the point of Zazen is not enlightenment, and gotten into arguments with people, and probably that guy who shows up every time I talk about this, you should stop listening to my videos if they make you so upset. But anyway, about whether I've had enlightenment or not, but the only thing, okay, it was indeed about 15 or maybe closer to 20 years after starting practice that I had anything one might call a kensho experience. It was something that I wrote about in my book Hardcore Zen, and I wrote about it again in my book There Is No God and He Is Always With You. And I never called it a kensho experience, but some reviewer who reviewed my book for one of the Buddhist magazines, I can't remember if it was Tricycle or Shambhala Sun, or Shambhala Sun's called something else now, isn't it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was one of those Buddhist magazine writers called it a kensho experience. I didn't call it that. But it was a big experience that clued me into, I don't know, the main thing I learned from that experience is my thoughts are just thoughts, which sounds like something anybody could tell you, and anybody can tell you that, and I just told you that. But really understanding it is very different from just being told that. Because you live, or at least I lived, my entire life in the thrall of thought. And when I realized my thoughts are just thoughts, I realized I can ignore them. I don't have to follow my thoughts. I don't have to believe my own thoughts. I might be wrong, and I don't have to constantly remind myself of what my thoughts were about something. That's one thing I realized I was doing a lot of, and I just was like, that's a waste of energy. I'm not going to do that anymore. And it became a lot quieter ever since then. Not that my thoughts are completely quiet, there was some guy on the internet a long time ago who connected himself up to, he was a meditation guru of great renown, and I'm not going to tell his name because I don't want to get in trouble because his fans will come after me. But anyway, he hooked himself up to a bunch of wires, and he had this machine next to him that he showed, and it proved that he was having no thoughts. And I thought, I don't know if that machine shows anything, but anyway, I don't know what would happen if I was connected to that machine, but I probably would register some thoughts if indeed that's what the machine does, and it just doesn't blink lights. That kind of looked fake to me, but anyway, whatever. Yeah, I still have thoughts, but I don't believe them anymore. And yeah, it took a long time, from the perspective of a 20-year-old, and having been told it was going to take 20 years, and having the thought, as I sort of alluded to, that I might not even have 20 years left of life, and 20 years later having that experience, that was, it confirmed that the stuff I had been studying in Buddhism was true. I now believe that all this stuff that I thought was speculative or philosophical or whatever, I feel like now that people like Dogen and Nisargadatta Maharaj would be another example. He's not a Buddhist, but he's a good, interesting guy in this area. Various other sutras and things. I realized that those weren't just philosophical speculations. Those were people writing about their real experiences and trying to convey them. And that there is a truth to these experiences once you've had them that transcends the kind of truth that you are used to, at least the kind of truth I was used to. And yeah, it took a long time. Why does it take a long time? My questioner asked. Let's see. Is it because, is it a physical thing, like in a sense that there's a rewiring of the brain? Well, Jiddu Krishnamurti uh, seemed to have thought so. At least that's my interpretation of some of the things I've read from him, that the brain is rewired and rebuilt by these meditation experiences. I don't know. I can't tell. I can't disconnect my brain and chop it up and see what it looks like inside and figure out if it's been rewired. But I suspect something like that has happened. And then the other question is, or is it because we spend such a long time looking at the mechanisms of thought and develop some kind of understanding which gives rise to different kind of seeing? I think that's probably closer to the mark. During many years, those 10 or 20 years it took of meditation practice, or I said 15 or 20 years, I think, there was a lot of looking at what goes on in my thoughts and how they arise and where they seem to come from and what they seem to do and where they seem to lead and so forth and so on. And yeah, all of that has a cumulative effect. But there's something that Nishijima Roshi said in a few of his lectures that he gave that I listened to, which is that he would say there's first enlightenment and there's second enlightenment. So Dogen, sorry about the garbage trucks, it's Monday and the garbage trucks are going. I'll try to talk louder than they are. Anyway, Dogen said that Zazen itself is enlightenment. So the first time that you do Zazen, you are experiencing kensho, enlightenment, satori, the fully awakened state. Although most of us, myself certainly included, don't see it that way. It doesn't seem like enlightenment. There doesn't seem to be anything great about it. It just seems like boredom and waiting for it to be over and waiting for the bell to ring and so forth. It doesn't feel like enlightenment. But it does feel like something. And I could tell right from the start that something was happening, that something useful and good was happening in my life. And sorry about the trucks. Anyway, in my life and how my brain was working and so on and so forth. So yeah, there was that. And then Nishijima Roshi would admit that there is second enlightenment. And all I can remember him saying about second enlightenment was that there is a cumulative effect of doing Zazen day after day after day. He, like a lot of Zen teachers, recommends doing the practice every day, once in the morning and once at night. My routine is to do 25 or 30 minutes in the morning and 25 or 30 minutes at night. I actually upped that at different times in my life where I was doing 40 minutes 4 times a day and stuff like that. I got very gung-ho at one point and obviously must not have had a job at that point in my life. It could have been a vacation or something. And I did lots of retreats. I think retreats are very useful if you have the opportunity. Somebody asked me this a while ago. I think if you have the opportunity to do a Zen retreat Nishijima Roshi's retreats were generally 3 days. A lot of people do 7-day retreats, they're 5-day retreats, but doing a multi-day retreat once a year was very useful for me, so I did those. And yeah, there was a cumulative effect of that. And I really don't know why, but I think it has a lot to do with your specific karma, and who knows if it comes from past lives of doing meditation before. That's what the literature would seem to imply. I don't want to make any claims for that. It could be, I don't know. I tend to think there's something to that, but I'm not one of those people who really insists that you must believe in reincarnation. But it does seem to have something to do with karma or whatever your fate, whatever is your destiny to happen. A lot of it is a cumulative effect. A lot of it is maturity. You sort of mature into it, and I think that a practice of Zazen, or probably almost any sort of meditation, well, there might be some meditations accepted from this idea, but I think it sort of speeds up your maturity factor. That's useful. I don't know why it takes so long, but I would say for those of you who are beginning or thinking about beginning a practice, there is something that happens right away, but don't get too excited about making something amazing happen. I did this parody, and if I can find it, I'll tack it on the end of this video because I don't think enough people have seen it. I did this parody commercial called the Enlightenizer. I did several versions of it, and I'm sure I can. I'm hopeful that I can find at least one of those versions and tack it on the end of this video. But the Enlightenizer was based on what I'd been seeing in different meditation magazines and things, where there were various gurus and whatnot making claims that their enlightenment, that their method got you enlightenment fast. So I made up the slogan for the Enlightenizer. It gets you enlightened fast, so you can get on with your life. You know, as if enlightenment is something you want to hurry up and get done with, so that you can go do something else. Enlightenment is a whole body, whole mind, whole lifetime deal. It's not an experience that you have. There's a whole lot of literature and stuff, and I'm sure that guy who writes me all the time and comments will get mad at me for saying this, but a lot of people are waiting for that experience, you know, the experience of Satori, the experience of Kensho. But those are momentary experiences. Koben Chino, who was my first teacher's teacher, was once asked, what's the most difficult time to work with a student? And he said, after they've had their first enlightenment experience. That's the most difficult time. So it's something that people tend to hold on to, and it can become a problem. It can become an impediment to seeing life as it actually is, because you had this experience and it happened and it lasted however long. I've had people write to me saying, I had an enlightenment experience that lasted 3 days, and I think, you know, if your enlightenment experiences last more than 48 hours, see a physician. You know, like those Viagra commercials. Anyway, if you don't know, I'm not going to explain it to you. But, you know, I think that's awful long time to have an enlightenment experience. In my case, the experience that I wrote about in Hardcore Zen and There Is No God and He Is Always With You was like momentary. But Tim had told me that the experience of enlightenment or kensho takes place outside of time. So yeah, by the watch, the experience I had was like over like that. I don't know, maybe it was a little longer. But in my subjective experience, it was literally forever, literally eternal. I don't know how to explain it, but it was a touch of eternity in the midst of a life that is not eternal. So yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, I got lost in talking. But yeah, don't be in a hurry to have those experiences. Yeah, okay, that's what I was saying. Because in one sense, they're momentary, and you're going to come back down. And that's one thing I learned about it from that experience that I've said over and over on this video channel, so forgive me once again, is that you always come back here. No matter how high you get, no matter how great your enlightenment experience is, and guy who writes me letters all the time or comments all the time, see if you're right, see if I'm right. I am right, but you might deny it. Anyway, you're going to come back here. You have to come back here. You have to come back here. And it's something also in Koben Chino's book, Embracing Mind. I believe that's where it is. There is a passage where he says it's like going to the source of a river. You climb up a mountain looking for the source of a river, and what you find there is a damp patch on the ground that's very misty, and you feel something mystical, and I think that's what he says. And he says, but you can't stay there. You can't stay there. So the most important thing is understanding what this is, because this is also a manifestation of enlightenment. This experience that you're having right now watching this video, and it's not special to watching this video, it goes with any experience. Sitting on the toilet, reading a comic book, riding a bus, washing the dishes, I don't care what it is, hanging the laundry, it doesn't matter, folding the laundry, whatever experience it is, that is also a manifestation of enlightenment. It's just that most of us don't notice it. And the important thing is learning how to notice it. And if you learn how to notice that, you don't need the big experience. You've already had it. Chances are, as my friend Shozan Jack Haubner of the great YouTube channel, what's it called, Zen Confidential, he said you probably already had an opening experience. That was one of his videos recently. The fact that you're interested in this says to me and says to him that you've already had some kind of an opening experience, but you probably didn't notice it. The only thing maybe a long practice of Zazen does is makes you able to notice it. And I don't know what the mechanism is. I'm sorry I can't answer my questioner's question. I don't know what the mechanism is, but there's no hack. I've seen this thing that you can go on YouTube and find enlightenment hacks, and you can find these enlightenment bros who I've talked about, who've had an enlightenment experience, and they're going to tell you all about it because they probably haven't quite come back down to earth from it, and once they do, they'll probably have a pretty different view of it. But it's always some young dude who's handsome, and he's on the YouTubes telling you about his enlightenment experience that he just had 10 minutes ago or 2 days ago. But I tell you what, the point of view from 2 days ago having this experience and the point of view from somebody like me of 20 years ago having this experience is quite different. And it's a lot less exciting and it's a lot less excited. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I can't answer the question of what the mechanism is, but maybe, I don't know. The only reason I could think of that one would want to know, and I'm not trying to impugn my questioner here with this or say this is the reason he asked this, he or she, I don't remember, is to try to hack it, is to try to figure out what the mechanism is so it can happen faster. You're not going to do that. People have tried doing that for, I don't know how many thousands of years, and it just isn't done. There's a certain maturity that has to happen. You can't rush it. You can't make it happen quicker. There's Genpo Roshi who said he could give you an enlightenment experience in a day. That was BS. That was garbage, and I called him out on that. He's the only Zen person I know who's made that claim, but there's other people who make that claim that you can have it quicker. You can't have it quicker. That's just the way it goes. It might come quicker, though. I mean, there's people who just get it right away. Nisargadatta Maharaj claimed that his enlightenment happened after 3 years of practice, and I believe him. But not all of us are that lucky or that karmically whatever. We don't have that karma. So, yeah, most of us have to trudge along for years and years before anything happens. And once something happens, that's just you noticing something that was already there. So, yeah, it's already here. So there you go. That's why enlightenment takes so long. It's not really a good answer. All right, if you want to... Oh, yeah, health update. I think I misled people into thinking I am cancer-free. That's not the case. The case is... Sorry about the garbage trucks. I'll try to talk over them. The case is that the cancer, whatever is there, is undetectable in MRI or PET scans, which have a resolution of, I don't know, like 3 or 4 millimeters. Something has to be at least that big. One doctor told me it has to be at least 1 million cells. So yeah, there could be something still there, and that's why I am weighing the options of whether to get surgery or not. I've been given kind of a choice, which is in a way wonderful, because most people I've heard don't have a choice, because after chemo and radiation, there's still a tumor there. There's no detectable tumor in me. But there still could be cancer, and one doctor is very favorable of having surgery. You really should get surgery. And another doctor who I've talked to, who's working on my case, has said he thinks surgery is the best option, but he does think that also watching and waiting and being tested frequently is also a viable and reasonable option. So I'm trying to figure out what to do, which is, yeah, that's, I almost wish I had no choice. Anyway, there you go. So, I'll let you know. I've got a video queued up to go up if I do go through with the surgery, which is currently scheduled for July 30th. So I've got a video queued up that I've already done that you'll, so you may think I didn't get the surgery, but you don't know. I'll tell you. Anyway, if you want to help me with all that stuff and others, you can go to the URL that you are seeing on the screen below, or that you're about to hear if you're listening to the audio version, and that is hardcorezen.info/donate. Once again, hardcorezen.info/donate. That is where you'll find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and right now really my only way of making a living. But you don't have to support me if you don't want to support me. All right, we will see you later. Have a good time all the time. Bye.
Sure, I want to awaken to my true nature and realize the fundamental purpose of the universe, but who's got the time?
You've tried retreats. You've tried sessions.
It says here they offer 3-month practice periods.
Well, I hope you've signed up for a whole lot of those practice periods, because with ordinary meditation, it may take years, weeks, or even months or years, sorry, in the wrong order, to reach complete, unsurpassed, perfect enlightenment.
Oh, Brad, what can I do?
Now you can put an end to the unpleasantness of being unenlightened. Hi, I'm internationally famous author and Zen expert Brad Warner. I've heard what you've been saying. Meditation is just too hard, and enlightenment takes too long. That's why I've developed the Enlightenizer. Hold on. Well, Janet, the Enlightenizer accesses the enlightenment centers of your brain to give you a true Satori experience in moments. And it's 100% effective. Plus, its use removes all hindrances. Let the Enlightenizer bring you to spiritual awareness while you chop wood. While you carry water. While you cut up vegetables. Even while you sleep.
Oh my God, Brad, it's really working! But how much does it cost?
Well, some meditation programs will cost you up to $3,430. And some Zen masters charge up to $50,000 for a genuine enlightenment experience. But wait, there's more. Order now, and you'll get, as a special bonus, genuine Buddha beads made of polyurethane from China, the home of Buddhism. Plus, a book of meditation secrets. Plus, an instructional video. Order before midnight tonight, you'll get the Enlightenizer, the Buddha beads, the book of Buddha secrets, the instructional video, and all of this, and the Enlightenizer too, for the low price of just $29.95 every 7 months for the rest of your life. Plus shipping and handling. The Enlightenizer gets you enlightened fast, so you can get on with your life.
Should not be used chopping wood, carrying water, sleeping. Side effects may include scurvy, vomiting, diarrhea, brain tumors, dropsy, scurvy, red flag, nocturnals, insanity, death, and anal leakage. Pregnant, nursing, ovulating, masturbating, digesting food, or breathing. The Enlightenizer should not be used by anyone over, under, or just at 16 years of age. If enlightenment experience lasts more than 4 hours, call 911.
And it's the perfect Christmas gift.
Hey, Ziggy. You didn't want to go outside with me because it's too darn hot out there, and I understand that. It was too hot for me. All right. Have a good sleep in your secret hiding place under the stairs. Bye, Zig.